But what if user experience was a negative experience? So it's important to kind of just look at it from a holistic point of view and not just go for the quick wins, and not just kind of go for wins and sacrifice that user experience. It's really awesome to start seeing companies adopt experimentation. That's such a positive shift that I'm seeing in the industry. So legal teams like to put up fences, and product and marketing teams just like to jump over those fences as much as possible. But you do have to kind of respect them. You have to respect the rules. So with legal, you do have to work with them rather than, trying to push the boundaries too much. As a marketer and an optimizer, obviously I want as much data as possible. Get me all the data that I can get. But I also understand why these regulations are in place. I think it just really shifts the emphasis on why qualitative research is so important, and taking the time to really talk to customers and getting zero-party data to guide your decision-making becomes so much more important now. The thing in the industry is that there's no losers. There's only insights that you can gain and that you can adapt and move forward with. But I think there's sometimes where very clearly there's a loser, right? Like it's gone backwards. In those cases where you obviously just want to try to avoid doing that as much as possible going forward. But then it's also about just communicating to whoever the stakeholder is that it's lucky that we tested, because if you actually have put this into production, you would have seen that negative result. Everyone looks at acquisition, everyone looks at, homepage, PDP, but just turning the dial a little bit with repeated purchases, lifetime value around that account section, making things easy for customers to perform those actions that they need to post-purchase makes a huge difference from a lifetime value point of view.
Welcome to another episode of the CRO Wizards series by VWO Podcast. In this series, we speak to top CRO leaders in e-commerce, media, subscription, retail, banking, and other industries about CRO strategies and the positive impact they can have on your business. Before we speak to our special guest for this episode, here's a quick summary of who we are and what we do. VWO is a leading experience optimization platform. Using our latest product, VWO Insights, you can analyze user journeys and identify conversion roadblocks on your website and mobile app. So without any further delay, let's jump right into the conversation.
Today, we are thrilled to welcome Ian Fong, a seasoned expert with over 15 years of experience in helping companies thrive in digital domain. Ian is currently the managing director at Experior, a conversion optimization agency known for its proven track record in increasing leads, conversions, revenue, and average order value. In 2014, he co-founded Yogurt Digital, a digital marketing agency where he successfully led and grew the company from a team of 3 to 35. He's passionate about helping companies learn about their customers and make better decisions to improve ROI. Welcome, Ian, to the CRO Wizards series by VWO Podcast.
I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you for the wonderful introduction.
So how has been your week so far?
It's really cold here in Sydney at the moment, so I'm just trying to keep warm. But yeah, quite busy with balancing the things you do as an agency owner. So doing the actual production work, managing teams, and trying to get more in.
Anything exciting that you're working on right now?
I've got a couple of interesting clients that I'm working on at the moment in the financial services space. So I'm working through that, and also just as you do as a business owner, working on the business in itself. So the company itself isn't that old. We're only about 3 months old, but I've got quite a lot of experience in the agency space. So we're still in the early stages of kind of working out the brand, how we want to position ourselves in the market, how we want to look. So we're very excited to kind of continue working on that and build that out.
It must be an interesting work schedule, like as you mentioned that you're just starting and you want to take it there. So I think it must be like pretty crazy schedule and interesting as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's really hectic because at the beginning, you're deciding on so many things and so many different paths that you want to take. But I've kind of been down this path before. So a lot of the actions that need to be taken, I've got a pretty solid understanding of the direction that I need to take it. So yeah, very exciting.
So tell us, improvements can only happen when we understand what's currently effective and what isn't. So, how do you go about conducting CRO audits, and what specific aspects do you assess?
We at Experior take quite a holistic approach when we look at CRO audits. So we look at the buyer's journey from start to finish, acquisition to experience to post-purchase. I feel like a lot of CRO audits out there just focus more on the experience side of things. So like, a bit of the easy data collection methods, things like analytics, session recordings, and heat maps. Those are really easy to set up and analyze and collect, but they're never going to tell you why things happen. And I feel like that's the path that we take. That's a little bit different. So we dig a little bit deeper into the qualitative side of things with moderated user testing. We do interviews, we do IA studies. Sometimes they're live, sometimes they're not. Sometimes we'll do like a remote session by Optimal Workshop or something like that. But I feel like there's such a wide range of different methods and tools out there to unlock insights. And I feel like a lot of CRO audits out there kind of take the approach that if the only tool that you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. And I feel like, there's a lot left on the table from a qualitative side of things. So we like to take a little bit more time and focus on those insights and research methods that take a little bit more time and take a little bit more resource to actually do. So, and it helps us paint a better picture. And once we kind of understand the full buyer's journey, it helps us down the right path for experimentation. So yeah, it just kind of helps with understanding the whole journey, acquisition to experience to post-purchase. And because they all matter, acquisition matters, post-purchase matters, it all matters to the conversion at the end of the day.
Then, how do you balance the need for rigorous data analysis with creative aspects of CRO?
I feel like the two go very much like hand in hand, balancing each other out. The data that you gather should always inform your creative decisions. It's like if you started off with a blank canvas, it's really quite difficult, right? It's hard to get ideas out when you don't have a starting point. So getting that data early on, as in any shape or form, will always help you decide on which path to take creatively. So the data can guide the creativity process, very much so, and it's required. But people at the end of the day will still need to kind of make that final decision at the end of the day. The data is just kind of a starting point, and then creativity kind of still needs to stem from people. So yeah, they definitely go hand in hand.
And what are the challenges do you face when optimizing conversions in a highly regulated industries like finance? And how do you overcome them?
Finance. So it's a very, very regulated industry. So yes, there's heaps of challenges that we've faced over the years with financial clients. We've pretty much encountered them all. So the big one is always legal. Legal issues and legal teams are always a bit of a challenge. So legal teams like to put up fences, and product and marketing teams just like to jump over those fences as much as possible. But you do have to kind of respect them. You have to respect the rules. And the reason for that is because, one little slip up can cause damage beyond repair for a financial institution. So with legal, you do have to work with them rather than, trying to push the boundaries too much. And you just need to factor in their lead time. So if they're going to, take a couple of weeks to get back to you from a legal point of view, you need to factor that into the work process. So involving them on as much as possible from a design point of view is always really helpful. Getting them involved, all the stakeholders involved that need to be involved. And what we like to do is we try to present all the variations as much as possible and forward plan all our tests so that we get really early feedback on about like where we can play, what boundaries we can push, and we kind of take that feedback on for any future tests. There's also a big part of the financial world where disclaimers and fine print is really, really important, right? Like it goes hand in hand with that whole legal thing. So, a lot of best practice, we're told to try to like simplify the page, make it really clear and easy, make the page flow, make, call to actions really, really prominent. But in the financial world, we found the opposite to be true. People like reading the fine print. People like to see the numbers. So it's just really about working with legal and making sure that you're not crossing the boundaries too much. And I guess the big challenge with finance is they tend to come from really large companies, like enterprise level companies. When you're dealing with a lot of different stakeholders, it's understandable that there's going to be a lot of red tape and checkpoints along the way. And you just have to kind of, again, factor that into your process, that some things will just take a little bit longer for things to get over the line. So having someone on their end that champions the process is really, really helpful, and just kind of, again, factoring in the lead time as much as possible.
It reflects you need a lot of patience and forward planning.
That is spot on. Yeah. You do need a lot of patience. You do need to factor in how much time legal and how many departments are going to get their hands on it, because it is just the way that they're organized.
So it's like we need a lot of planning, we need a lot of patience, and like bearing capacity that there would be setbacks into and fro, and how we accommodate it well.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost a little bit of a shift in your mindset of, testing and learning rapidly and iteratively. It's almost like, they have a very old school mentality of like, going through sprints and needing to do a bunch of work all at once, and then taking all those learnings and then doing it again. So it's a bit of a challenge, like you said. But at the end of the day, it's just the way that they're organized. So yeah.
It's at the end, like we have to like have that patience and go with it. And that's how we have to groom our way differently, I guess, for this industry as well.
Absolutely. And you work around it. So you do things like, if things are taking a bit of time to get approved, you obviously shift your resources and your focus to other things. So maybe we'll go and do a bit more research, or maybe we'll just put together a bit more variations. Maybe we'll just, start implementing a couple of tests from a development point of view, so you kind of shift your focus and you go with the flow.
So that it's worth waiting.
Yeah, exactly right. And once they see something in market and you can see the results come out, it's always worth that wait. So definitely.
How do you see the role of user research and testing evolving in the light of increasing data privacy concerns and regulations?
It's a good question. So as a marketer and an optimizer, obviously I want as much data as possible. Get me all the data that I can get. But I also understand why these regulations are in place, with, all the data breach that's been happening around the world and all those issues that it's causing. I think it just really shifts the emphasis on why qualitative research is so important, and taking the time to really talk to customers and getting zero-party data to guide your decision making becomes so much more important now because of that. So as optimizers, we just need to kind of learn to work around that shift in the world.
It'll actually make many, I would say, platforms, or maybe platforms along with departments, to shift their focus, or maybe just figure out a way to deal with such compliance and regulations, because I think it will shake all the other industries. It has started, but yes, people are also embracing how to tackle that up and do with minimum information that's available, and show maximum value is also the another thing.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, there's bound to be solutions that kind of come out eventually that help us solve a lot of these challenges. But yeah, I think definitely just kind of still focusing and emphasizing on the things that you can control and the things that you can do. So go talk to customers, do the surveys, do user testing. All of those things will be still super valuable, zero-party data that can guide your decision making.
And what's your strategy for analyzing data after a test is won or lost? Like, how beneficial do you feel that segment analysis is for iterative testing?
I think it really depends on the hypothesis at the end of the day. We do segment and we do take a deeper dive, but not usually immediately. So again, it kind of comes back down to the hypothesis. So let's say if we were doing something for mobile specifically, then obviously, we'll take a deep dive into the mobile segment and have a look at the different devices and do segmentation that way. What we like to do is obviously still look at all the important guardrails as well. So, confidence, sample size, total conversions, all that kind of stuff still needs to obviously be put in place. But then we usually don't take a deeper dive into segmentation unless we were looking for more insights for more ideas later on. So let's say our focus for the next quarter is to, for example, focus on mobile and only do mobile tests for the next quarter. Then we might look back at our previous quarter and look at those tests and then segment it that way. It's almost like a look back kind of thing rather than using it to guide our thinking going forward. But it always, again, comes down to the hypothesis at the end of the day. So if it makes sense to do a bit more deeper dive and segmentation, then we'll definitely do it. But typically at this point, it's always been kind of a look back kind of thing.
And how do you absorb the results of test if it has just lost? Or how do you...
The thing in the industry is that there's no losers. There's only insights that you can gain and that you can adapt and move forward with. But I think there's sometimes where very clearly there's a loser, right? Like it's gone backwards. So in those cases where you obviously just want to try to avoid doing that as much as possible going forward. But then it's also about just communicating to whoever the stakeholder is that it's lucky that we tested, because if you actually have put this into production, you would have seen that negative result. So I think it's just about how you frame that problem or frame that outcome of the A/B test. You always want to be learning from every test, and that's a given. It's just about kind of communicating, hey, if we actually did put that into production, look what would have potentially happened.
We're just trying to convey that this could have been the potential revenue loss, which has been prevented rather than just actually seeing that in our numbers. So I think not only revenue loss, but yes, there could be other factors that we are considering to achieve, which would have already given the metrics in a downside. So I think, yes, that should be the capacity and the appetite to just grab that results as well, because industry always loves winners. But then when it's something that is at loss, then how we communicate also becomes effective.
Absolutely. And that's why it's also really important to not just only focus on the one metric.
Yes.
You need to have a wider view of the metrics in play. So you can increase conversion rates, but what if user experience was a negative experience, right? So you can have a short-term impact, but then it might have caused a long-term kind of negative impact. So it's important to kind of just look at it from a holistic point of view and not just go for the quick wins and not just kind of go for wins and sacrifice that user experience. So yeah, definitely taking a broader view.
Secondary plus primary can always be a focus that should be considered.
Yeah, absolutely. And just having those guardrails in place where you might want to take a longer view, like looking at lifetime value. Has that increased or decreased because of this one particular test? That's always kind of really important to do as well.
So what should companies keep in mind when they are transitioning from basic web testing to advanced server-side testing?
I would ask the questions, a couple of questions back to them and just kind of really get an understanding of why behind that. So is it, are you transitioning from front end to server side because you're kind of hitting diminishing returns of front end? Like, are you limited in the sense of the scope of the tests? Are you going to commit the right resources to server side? Because we all know that it's obviously going to take a lot more resources to get off the ground and running. And do you have the right processes in place to get server side up and running? And I think the most important one is kind of looking at it from a maturity level. And where do they sit from an experimentation maturity point of view? Do they have organizational buy-in and do they have executive buy-in as well? Because, if they've answered a no to any of those questions, then I don't feel like they're going to be ready to go down that path of server-side testing, because it's a whole different ball game when it comes to experiments. So yeah, it really depends on where they're sitting on the scale of maturity, and are they ready for it?
Yes, readiness is like most important thing prior making that decision, because if it's a yes, then like it's a lot of heavy lifting on the back end side, and like with that it should also ensure that test velocity continues.
Yeah, correct. And the buy-in from the executives to actually, get it up and running and committing the resources to do all that kind of testing is very, very important. They need that support from the upper levels to make it happen. So it's definitely a thing where if you're maturing along the experimentation maturity scale, then it's highly recommended. But yeah, if you're kind of not ticking off any of those boxes, then it's not gonna be as beneficial to keep going and committing those resources.
Absolutely. So what do you think CRO will be like in future, and what part of it or which trends excites you the most, especially with the advancements in AI and machine learning?
When it comes to, I guess, the future and what excites me in terms of CRO, it's nice to see that it's getting a lot more popular. We exist as a company because we like to help other companies become more customer centric. So it's really awesome to start seeing companies adopt experimentation. That's such a positive shift that I'm seeing in the industry, specifically with AI. I'm just really excited that we're going to be able to move a lot faster with what we're doing now. To analyze data, to get tests up, the whole process just gets sped up so much more with AI. It helps knock down a lot of the roadblocks that we face on a day-to-day basis. So it just gives us the freedom and the ability to focus on more of that bigger picture strategy, and also to just take more decision making and creative risks, essentially.
It would just be a helping hand as well. Like you said, that it would make our life easy and a little bit faster. And like you said, that it will assist in certain stages of creativity and just like another opinion that we wish to have.
It's good to help speed up a lot of the things that we do, so that we can get experimentation velocity faster, and it just helps take care of a lot of those almost boring nitty-gritty tasks that you have to do from an analysis point of view, giving us a lot more time to do a bit more of the bigger picture stuff.
Yes, it's like you feed the data points and it will just help summarize things and like create a story of it, so that we can do the thinking part of what next.
Yeah, absolutely. And it becomes more and more important for people to understand what good outputs are and bad outputs are from that. The more experience that you have to kind of read those results that come out of it, it just emphasizes the importance of that as well.
Tell us, like, you've been in this industry for almost a decade now, and which Australian industries are most receptive to experimentation, and which ones would pay closer attention to it?
E-commerce, without a doubt, is the most receptive to experimentation in Australia. Look, they have the right numbers for it, traffic conversions, but I think most importantly, the e-commerce industry, they see a return immediately with testing. And I think that's pretty much not just an Australian thing, that's around the world. The payoff is instant, whereas with lead generation, getting the lead in requires a sales team to then get factored in to nurture that lead, to then close that lead. So definitely e-commerce, without a doubt, is the most receptive in Australia. And yeah, it's just because people want to see immediate results, and it makes sense. But I feel like all industries and all companies can benefit from experimentation in some way, shape, or form, no matter what size they are. because at the end of the day, it's not just A/B testing that we're doing from an experimentation point of view. What we do is essentially help people make better decisions, right? More informed decisions. It's a method of gathering data, validating approaches, and there's literally no company or industry in the world that wouldn't benefit from making better decisions at the end of the day.
It's like the more you try, the more you can learn that what should have been better or what could be better.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice to see that it's getting a lot more adopted from a product team point of view, and we're seeing that not so much in Australia. Like, it's slowly being adapted more. More product teams are doing a lot more experimentation. We're definitely seeing it happen more in like the US and the UK, where product teams are kind of adapting it into their process. And it's good to start seeing that shift happen in Australia as well, but obviously not at the pace as our international counterparts.
I think it's gradually grooming. Like, the pace is a little bit slow, but it has like taken up, at least in like last few years. Versus
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Like, when I first started 10-ish years ago, we were very much selling the category, still kind of educating people. This is what CRO is. This is what you can do with experimentation. Whereas the awareness of the category is a lot more higher now. So it just becomes a different kind of educational piece.
The conversation also changes. Like, rather than starting from the scratch, it is somewhere that something is known, and like we start from mid somewhere, so that at least that maturity helps and makes it easier to explain the value as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're not explaining just the benefits. It's more like, okay, how do you differ your processes and all that kind of stuff now. So it's a different conversation that we're having for sure.
Could you name 3 overlooked pages or areas that businesses often neglect to optimize, but optimizing them could have led to an increase in sales?
I'm thinking back to the last audit we did, and this was for a financial services company. And what was super interesting with them was that the About Us page was the 3rd most visited page. So this is within an industry that has a lot of different players and highly competitive, all offering pretty much the same thing. So it's quite highly commoditized. So it's really interesting to see that a lot of people were visiting the About Us page. Ultimately, what we found out was that people were looking for a point of difference. Why should they choose this particular company over the hundreds of other companies that were out there that were doing the same thing? So I think it's such a great opportunity for pretty much any company and any brand to really enhance that About Us page. You might not have a lot of visitors going there, but the ones that do are obviously looking for something. They're looking for a point of difference. They're looking for why you exist as a company. And that was super interesting to find that out in our last report when we talked to customers, where they could recall specific language that was used on the About Us page. Like, that's how detailed they were going down and recalling that information. So I'd say that's one area. For e-commerce, a really neglected part of the journey is that post-purchase area, right? So improving the account section has a huge potential for increasing lifetime value. It's so overlooked. Everyone looks at acquisition. Everyone looks at, homepage, PDP, PLP. We want to make everything about that acquisition. But just turning the dial a little bit with repeated purchases, lifetime value around that account section, making things easy for customers to perform those actions that they need to post-purchase makes a huge difference from a lifetime value point of view. And then another one is just in general, like all sites, not specifically on a page, but offers in general, I feel like just get overlooked. So they play such an enormous part in why someone would potentially convert. And, we talk a lot about message testing. You see a lot of case studies around, changing headlines here and there, but not the offer itself. I feel like that's such a neglected, missed opportunity. It's such a strong conversion driver, but you don't really see too many case studies and people talking about, hey, we actually changed the entire offer. This is what we presented differently to these users, and this is how it's changed. And these are the impact and the results, basically. I feel like that's like a huge one that every industry needs to focus on a little bit more. Those are like the high impact areas that can be played with.
Yes, it should be like, how do we bundle the offers and how do we groom it further? Because not everybody would fit in that offer that we want to sell. It should always be like what customers would want to be offered then versus what business can offer. So I think, yes, there is a lot of space on that side, which is, we agree that it's not being looked at, or it doesn't remain the core focus. So it's always like we get more through what common things are.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a little bit neglected, and it's not difficult to start offer testing. You're already kind of performing a lot of the actions that gather the data to offer tests, like understanding pain points, understanding why people purchase. It's then about how do you kind of bundle all of that up and message it and present it in a way that's the most attractive to the customer.
So any final thoughts you'd like to share, or any message you'd want to share with our audience before we conclude this?
If we kind of look past the whole, we want winners to increase revenue, we want winners to increase leads, it's just a better way of doing things. It's just a better way of making decisions at the end of the day. It's de-risking those decisions. It's helping businesses make better decisions, going down the right path. So many benefits, right? So many different benefits that you can really gather from their process. So it's great that it's starting to get a lot more traction, and businesses are kind of adopting that process, definitely.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for sharing great insights with our audience. Now we'll start with our rapid fire round, and we'd love to hear your impromptu answers to it.
Let's do it.
Yes. If you were starting a career in CRO today, what is one thing that you would do differently?
I would probably go straight into an agency that does CRO. And, obviously I'm super biased about that, but I started my career in-house in CRO, and I felt like that was a little bit limited in what I learned with that. I kind of had to take on a lot of the learnings myself, whereas with if I started my career, I could join an agency, I could get exposed to so many different industries, and you just learn things a lot faster. Really, really important at the beginning of anyone's career is just that learning mindset and making sure that you're learning as much as possible. And being exposed to different industries will definitely help you become a better practitioner at the end of the day.
It widens the horizon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only from a learning point of view, but just almost like work in itself is very different in an agency versus, when you're working in-house. It is a lot more rapid fire. You are juggling lots of different projects at once. So you do learn so many different things from a time management point of view. If you're client facing, you'll learn so much communication skills. On top of all of the actual practitioner skills that you will learn.
A newsletter that every CRO professional must follow.
I wouldn't say a specific newsletter, but I'll call out a couple of people that are like, just follow these people because they're good people, and they have really good information. So Johnny Longden on LinkedIn. So he's very he's really good with the higher level kind of gearing the industry towards where it needs to be. Specifically for ecom, the page itself is called Ecom Ideas. So if you're in the e-commerce space, it's fantastic. Linda, that's right. Yes, yes. She, those ideas are fantastic. Like whenever you're trying to generate new ideas, and you're in the ecom space, it's so good. It's one of my go-tos there. And then Deborah O'Malley has Guess the Test. So that's such a humbling experience for anyone to go through. And it just really goes to show you, best practice, what doesn't really count for much from a CRO point of view.
So any book do you recommend?
If you're just starting out in CRO, Ronnie Kahavi's book is fantastic. The name escapes me, but I think it's like it's basically the Bible for A/B testing and experimentation. Experimentation works from Tumke. Those would be the two key ones, I think. They give you a really good foundation level, and also the deeper dives into, experimentation, why the numbers are so important. A lot of the things that practitioners tend to kind of skip over when they're just starting out, just throwing up a test there and kind of not respecting the statistics. Those books will kind of help you, guide you into better experimentation.
What's your go-to travel destination in Australia?
In Australia, I'm a bit of a hermit, so I don't really travel as much as I should. And I'm obviously very biased about Sydney because this is where I live. When we do kind of travel, it is usually outside of Australia a little bit more. So, yeah, specifically in Australia, definitely Sydney. We have fantastic beaches around here, if you're into that kind of thing, and just the best food that you can possibly have, because we have such a variety. It's such a multicultural city / country. You can pretty much get any dish, cuisine that you want in this country. So we're very spoiled in that sense. Like I've traveled to Asia, I've traveled to Europe, I've been quite a few places. The variety that we have here is impeccable. It's unmatched.
Then you must be trying every other day the new thing, or every other week.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely just trying different cuisines here and there, and things pop up all the time. So it's very beneficial. If you're a bit of a foodie, then it's a great city for that.
One thing that you think AI will replace in next 3 years?
What I mentioned before, a lot of that grunt work is going to be replaced quite a bit. So almost that data science-y analysis, drawing of the insights from the data, I feel like a lot of that is slowly starting to replace a lot of that skill set. So even Excel commands, a little bit of coding, you can ask it to generate some front end code for experiments now. I don't think it'll truly replace people. It'll just elevate people to kind of push themselves to be more strategic about what they do. But definitely a lot of that kind of grunty analysis and work that gets done.
It would act as an assistant to our own self.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it just comes down to the experience that you have to then analyze the results that it gives you, because if it's poor output and you don't have the experience and the eye to understand that it's poor output, then that's obviously not going to be great for you.
One CRO metric that you wish people should stop obsessing over?
Revenue is, although it's fantastic, there's so many things that impact revenue. You'll see it all the time on case studies, right? This generated an incremental lift of this much, and then they completely disregard all of the statistics that go behind it. They don't tell you anything about the actual conversion rate, the average order value, all the things that contribute at the end of the day from a user point of view. Those get just completely disregarded. Everyone loves to talk about incremental revenue gain from A/B testing, but then they don't really show you the other numbers behind it. So I feel like that's a little bit of it's a bit dirty in that sense. Not dirty. Dirty is not the right word. It's they're hiding something. They're not. They're on purposely not telling you.
Too much obsession with that metric.
Exactly. There is a bit too much obsession with it, and it's just kind of disregards a lot of the statistics that really matter behind it.
Tell us a dream or goal that you want to achieve in next 3 years from now.
Definitely just want to continue working on amazing clients, educating people more on getting experimentation culture embedded in organizations. So it's always been a dream to work on a gaming client, for example, because I'm a big gamer. So I'd love to get the chance to work on a gaming client. That'd be great.
It would be like a customer, you are the customer, and then having a client So they'll have
Yeah, I can interview myself. I'll be my own user tester. It'll be fantastic. Yeah, definitely gaming. That's always been an industry that we haven't touched on. Like I've worked at a lot of industries over the years, but gaming hasn't been one that we've been able to get to just yet. So so that would be fantastic to do. I think just general more travel as well, and just getting more international clients. I've always been Australian based and Australian focused, so it would be good to kind of spread the wings and get a bit more international with what we do.
That's super. We wish the best that you achieve it in 2 years instead of 3 years.
Well, fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed. In another 2 years, we might jump back on another chat like this, and I might be in a different country for sure.
Great. All right, then this has been another thought-provoking episode of CRO Wizards. Until next time, we keep optimizing.